You know the four elements in Avatar: The Last Airbender: water, earth, fire, and air, right? Those four separate elements overlap in some very special cases. Over the course of Avatar: The Last Airbender and Legend of Korra, we have been introduced to some very creative applications of bendings. We learned that within the four elements are sub-elements of bending. Waterbending not only has healing, but also bloodbending, without a doubt one of the most gruesome and extreme forms of bending. Firebending has lightning and combustion bendings, and earthbending has lava and metal bending. Finally, airbending has flight and spiritual projection. Today we will be taking a deep dive into each of these forms of bending. Water is the element of change. The people of the water tribes are capable of adapting to many things. They have a sense of community and love that holds them together through anything. This is perhaps why water is the most versatile element of the four elements. Even in its main form, waterbenders have made scalding steam and freezing water. Katara and Aang have shaped the clouds in the sky. Water is one of the most abundant resources on the planet, next to air, so it would make sense that it has the most uses. When it comes to sub-element bending, water wins in terms of how many different types of water bending there are. In this first section, we are going to go over bloodbending, healing, and spirit bending. Let's start with the most talked about and easily the most brutal form of bending in the entire Avatar franchise, bloodbending. Bloodbending was first introduced in Avatar: The Last Airbender during the episode The Puppet Master, where the gang meet Hama, a kindly old waterbender with more than a few secrets. Years before, when Hama was young, she lived in the Southern Water Temple and was taken during one of the Fire Nation raids. Hama was taken to a high-security prison meant to hold waterbenders. She described her experience to the gang and talks about how they would chain her up in order to give her water to drink, and used cruel retribution at any sign of resistance. Without going into too much detail, it was a straight-up concentration camp for waterbenders. It was a kids' show, so they couldn't use the words concentration camp, but that's what it was. Despite all the precautions the Fire Nation took to break both her spirit and her body, Hama still found a way to connect with her waterbending. Under the power of the full moon, she was able to amplify her powers. Even in her weakened state, she learned to control the blood inside rats' bodies to practice this new dark technique in bloodbending. By taking control of the fluids in one's body, she is able to control their movements. She started with the rats in her cage and soon became powerful enough to do it to the guards keeping her prisoner. When she escaped the prison, she found a small village to live in just outside of the Fire Nation archipelago and swore revenge. You don't survive a Fire Nation prison where you are regularly deprived of water and beaten and not swear revenge. During the Puppet Master episode, Katara learns about this dark technique, and eventually is forced to use it on Hama herself. Before this, Hama taught Katara how to draw water from living things in order to use the water inside. She drained the moisture from flowers and trees, a clear sign of darker things to come. By the end of the episode, Hama and Katara are the only two bloodbenders in the show. In order to bloodbend, a powerful waterbender needs the strength of the full moon in order to manipulate the water and blood inside a living creature. Even with this power, the way the manipulated body jerks and moves around is nothing short of unsettling. It's no wonder why the Puppet Master was supposed to be Avatar's Halloween episode. Still, Katara worked with the United Republic of Nations to outlaw the practice worldwide before Korra's time. Though one has to remember, bloodbending is a rare and dark technique. Due to its rarity and the huge violation of someone's bodily autonomy, two things are clear. The only people who would use this technique are very powerful and very evil. Unfortunately, the next bloodbender was Yakon, a notorious crime lord in Republic City. Yakon's bloodbending was different, however. It was much more powerful since he could take over more people, and more importantly, he didn't need a full moon to utilize this power. Despite all his power, Yakon could not evade capture, and Aang eventually caught Yakon and took away his bending. After some time, Yakon managed to escape and flee to the Northern Water Tribe. There, he assumed a new identity, and raised two boys who were taught this new psychic bloodbending to, Tarlok and Noatak, the later of whom would be known as Aman. This new form of bloodbending also has a powerful ability. It can take away someone's bending in a similar way to the Avatar's energy bending. At first glance, it may seem that psychic bloodbending has the edge over normal bloodbending, but there are some key differences. While psychic bloodbending does not require a full moon and you can control more people, it doesn't give you the full control that normal bloodbending does. Additionally, while a bloodbender can control a person's movements, their mental abilities are left intact. and the Bloodbender can't use the abilities of the one they are controlling. So even if Amon had full control over Korra, he could not make her bend the 4 elements. While other benders might be more susceptible to bloodbending, another waterbender can resist the effects. This is shown when Katara frees herself from Hama's control, or how Amon was able to overpower Tarlok. Bloodbending might be the most powerful form of waterbending, but it's far from the only one, and the others can be just as useful. Water has always been used as a symbol for healing and purification. Is it because we need it to survive, or because drinkable water is one of the signs of civilization? In any case, a sub-skill of waterbending is healing. By using water as a catalyst, a waterbender can heal physical wounds and redirect energy paths to help a person's body heal at an accelerated rate. While any waterbender can learn to heal, due to the patriarchal culture of the Water Tribe, the practice has been taught exclusively to women, and men are forbidden to learn it. How effective healing is depends on a number of factors, such as the quality of the water used and the skill of the healer. We've seen Katara, Kaya, and Korra heal many injuries ranging from scrapes, cuts, and bruises. Waterbending can't heal all wounds or ailments. For example, Princess Yu's complications could not be mended through healing, though it has been theorized that Yu was stillborn. It is also said that Aang was only healed because Katara had water from the Moon Spirit's shrine, which had special properties. Within this sub-skill of waterbending is a seldom used niche use for waterbending, spirit bending. This technique was developed by Unalaq and mixes both healing and spirit bending to quell evil spirits. This was mostly used when corrupted spirits started to swarm the material world. This technique involves using healing to change a spirit's negative energy into positive energy, restoring its internal balance in the process. However, the reverse is also true, and a spirit bender can manipulate a spirit's positive energy into negative. Unalaq demonstrated this power in the spirit world and almost destroyed Korra's soul with it. Let's move on from waterbending to earthbending. The people of the Earth Kingdom are diverse and strong. They are persistent and enduring. I mean, you kinda have to be able to bend the hardest element of the 4. To bend Earth, one has to be determined, and in some instances, stubborn. You gotta show those rocks who are in charge and be unflinching in your attempts. It is for these reasons the sub-elements of earthbending are so brutal. The first and most obvious sub-element of earthbending is metal bending. Developed by Toph Beifong in Avatar: The Last Airbender, Toph begins to detect the impurities in processed metal and finds that she can bend them just like regular Earth. Toph saw that even metal was just earth that had been refined and thus malleable. This was just the beginning, however, as Toph used her newfound powers not only to escape, but to help break into the Fire Lord's chambers during the Black Sun invasion. Unlike bloodbending, metal bending did not require a special boost from a celestial body, but it did involve a new perspective on earthbending. Since earthbending requires such a rigid and bold fighting style, the learning curve is steeper for others. After the 100-Year War, Toph Beifong the Beifong Metal Bending Academy to teach earthbenders her findings. In the comics, she explains to Sokka how she found her first students. She used her meteorite bracelet to test her first metal bending students when she noticed it would vibrate slightly when she was around them. Soon the Republic City Police used primarily metal benders. In Legend of Korra, the practice of metal bending had evolved since its invention. The police officers in Republic City use metal cables to move around and subdue suspects. Additionally, the city of Zaofu was a city made entirely by metal benders and founded by Toph's daughter Suyin. She would also be the one to teach Korra how to metal bend, making Korra the very first metal bending avatar. The art of metal bending evolved as the show progressed. During The Last Airbender, Toph's metal bending was more direct and required physical contact with the metal. Instead of shaping and manipulating it like Earth, she would often crunch and deform plates of metal around her body. It was unrefined, but that's only because it was just discovered, and she was only 12 when she discovered it. During The Legend of Korra, we see metal benders move and manipulate metal like Earth. We mentioned the police officers' cables, but there were even more innovations to the art. Kuvira used metal shingles like projectiles to attack and also subdue people, and even magnetize the metal she bent. While metal bending does have its strengths, there are some metals that cannot be bent. Metal bending requires the user to manipulate the earth particles still within the material. If the metal is highly refined, like platinum, there is no earth left in the metal to bend, and thus it is impervious to this technique. This little weakness was exploited twice, once with Hiroshi Sato and his mech suits, and with Kuvira's giant mech suit. Much like healing and waterbending, earthbending also has a sub-skill all earthbenders can potentially learn: seismic sense. It enables earthbenders to detect vibrations in the ground to perceive objects, people, and other aspects of their environment, essentially acting as sonar, but through earth and metal. It is a skill that was long thought to be held only by Toph, but in fact Toph learned it from the Badger Moles, the original earthbenders. Like her, they could not see and moved through the earth by sensing the vibrations throughout the earth. After training under Toph, Aang began to pick up on the skill. Though not to Toph's level, she could use this seismic sense to not only detect movements and see with her feet, but she could also tell if someone was lying based on the rhythm of their heartbeat. She not only taught it to Aang, but as the chief of Republic City's police, she taught it to her top officers and her daughters Lin and Suyin. The use of seismic sense was vital for Toph to discover metal bending. Finally, we have the most destructive and rarest form of earthbending, lavabending. Lavabending allows the user to manipulate molten earth. It is very destructive and hard to act against, since lava can burn through almost anything. In the entire franchise, there have only ever been 4 confirmed lavabenders: Avatar Seto, Avatar Kyoshi, Bolin, and Gazan. 3 of them have died since, so after Korra ends, Bolin is the last known lavabender. Avatar Seto was the first recorded lavabender. We see him for only a brief moment when Roku explains the Avatar state to Aang. He uses the Avatar state to make 4 small volcanoes erupt. It was assumed lava was close enough to firebendings, but it is in fact a very rare form of earthbending. Kyoshi uses lavabending to separate Kyoshi Island from the mainland. During Legend of Korra, Gazan of the Red Lotus is shown to be a very powerful lavabender, and has to be imprisoned on a completely wooden ship in order to keep him contained. We see through his battles that he can turn rock and metal into molten lava, making him one of the most powerful benders in the Red Lotus, and even the world. Any amount of lava is too deadly. It only took 3 small rocks for him to make a shuriken of lava and break free. During the attack on Zaofu, Gazan made a moat of lava that made it impossible for Korra's friends to rescue her directly. The people of the Fire Nation have desire and will, and the energy and drive to achieve what they want. The history of the Fire Nation is, well, checkered at best. Still, the element of fire is one of passion and energy, which is why it is often misunderstood as an element of destruction. There are 2 sub-elements of firebending: combustion bending and lightning generation. Very little is known about combustion bending. In The Last Airbender, Combustion Man didn't really say much, or anything at all, so we could not glean any specifics about the art from him. However, he did demonstrate the art of combustion bending, and it was nothing short of unstoppable. It consists of the ability to channel chi through the forehead, often marked by an intricate third eye tattoo, superheating the surrounding air and producing a beam of explosive energy capable of immense damage. It is often accompanied by a series of pops, and then an explosion afterwards. When the gang first encounter Combustion Man, he is able to cut through Toph's defenses with ease, and evaporates an entire body of water with a single blast. Only when the tattoo on his forehead is hit is his combustion bending hampered. He is unable to produce any explosion if he is struck in the head. This implies that combustion bending requires good chi flow from the crown chakra, located in the head. After Combustion Man's demise, we wouldn't see another bender like him until Legend of Korra, and the combustion bender Pali. Between the 2, there isn't a remarkable difference in ability, but considering how powerful this kind of bending is, that's not a bad thing. The second firebending sub-element, lightning, has a lot more history behind it. Often called cold-blooded fire, lightning generation is an advanced firebending technique that allows a user to separate the positive and negative energies internally before directing it up through the arm and out the fingertips. It is very deadly and precise, because it's freaking lightning. It is not as advanced as bloodbending in that you don't need an outside source to supercharge your firebending, but it is not a technique everyone can learn like metal bending for earthbenders. It was said that lightning generation was extremely rare, so rare in fact that it was believed to be just a part of Fire Nation folklore. However, the outlaw Shu Ping-an was one of the last known practitioners of lightning generation. He was an outlaw who used his power to gain followers and mount an attack on the Earth Kingdom. He was defeated by Kyoshi, and he was imprisoned so his knowledge could be extracted and spread throughout the Fire Nation. Fast forward to The Last Airbender, and Azula is a prodigy in lightning generation, a skill Ozai and Iroh both have. While lightning is shown to be a destructive and often chaotic power, it does have its utility. In Legend of Korra, Mako is able to generate lightning and uses it to generate power for Republic City as a side hustle. Air is the element of freedom. The Air Nomads detached themselves from worldly concerns and found peace and freedom. Also, they apparently had pretty good senses of humor. Air is already one of the most versatile elements of the four, and one of the rarest for obvious reasons. Thanks to the atrocities of Fire Lord Sozin, the Air Nomads were lost, and their culture was mostly lost. It was only through the efforts of Avatar Aang that the Air Nation was saved and able to thrive. Thanks to the harmonic convergence, a new generation of airbenders was born. Due to a severe lack of representation, airbending is known to have only two one-sub-element and arguably one sub-skill: flight and spirit projection. Have you heard of the wise guru Lagima? He is one of the two known airbenders to achieve weightlessness, or flight. He and Zahir. Now you might be thinking to yourself, couldn't Aang fly with his glider? Well, yes he could, but weightlessness refers to true freedom, brought about by letting go of all earthly tethers, to enter the void and become wind. It is said that once Lagima discovered true freedom, he spent the last 40 years of his life without ever touching the ground. It was said to be just a myth until Zahir entered the void. After Pali died, Zahir lost the only earthly attachment he had left in the world, and when that was gone, he lost all earthly despises. He became untethered from this world and flew off with Korra in tow. Removing the scarcity of airbenders, the ability to fly and mimic the wind was said to be so great because it requires so much sacrifice. Much like metal bending for earthbenders, you first have to open your mind to the freedom being weightless brings. You have to be empty of both body and mind in order to enter the void. Similar to flight, spiritual projection is a complex ability that up until now we have only seen one airbender do, Jinora. There have been gifted individuals who have gone from the physical world to the spiritual world, but only Jinora has taken her spiritual form and traveled through the physical world. This requires a heightened sense of spiritual energy. It might work best for airbenders since their philosophy allows them to have a heightened connection to the spirit realm and let them take flight in another way. And those are all the sub-elements of bending. Which one's your favorite sub-element? If I had to pick one, I would pick metal bending. I know blood bending is powerful, but it's too brutal for me. I would get squeamish. Let us know which you would pick if given the choice in the comments down below. Be sure to hit that subscribe button for more CBR content.